Hello. Hey there. Today I am doing a live stream at the suggestion of somebody from the Ashtanga for All Facebook group, actually. And this live stream is a discussion on what I call the 70% rule. And that is basically it's about sustainability in practice. So I'm going to wait a moment here to see if I can get a few of you on live with me because I have a little exercise that I want us to do together so that you can really kind of feel the 70% rule. So if you're with me live here, or if you're at home watching it later, I want you to get it in a comfortable seated position if that's possible for you. And I know it might not be if you're depending on what you're doing right now. But if you can come into a comfortable seated position, just take a moment and sit up tall. And I'm going to try to demonstrate the 70% rule to you through a very easy breathing exercise right now. And we're going to do a little bit of an abbreviated version of this. Just for time's sake, I don't want this to be a boring live stream for you. But you could extend it and do more repetitions at home. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to ask you to, in a moment, breathe in fully and exhale fully. So full inhale, full exhale. But I want you to count how long you're inhaling for. So for instance, empty your lungs, take a full inhale and count how long that inhale takes. Got it? Exhale fully, count how long the exhale takes. Okay, so that we're going to call 100%. And now I want you to, right now, take 5 more breaths at 100% of your capacity. So whatever that was, you're taking 5 full inhales and 5 full exhales at 100% of that capacity. So go ahead and do it with me right now. So if you're just joining in, we're taking 5 breaths at 100% of your lung capacity. So just 2 more breaths, 100% capacity. And this is to demonstrate the sustainability in practice, the 70% rule. So you probably have about 1 more breath right now at 100% of your capacity. And then let it go all the way, all the breath out. Okay, so now you counted that first breath, right? So whatever it was, maybe it was, let's say for easy math, 10. Now I want you to do 70% of that. So if you counted more like 15 breaths, it would be 70% of 15 breaths, which is probably like around a 10 count. If you counted 10 breaths, you'd be doing about a 7 count. So I want you to take 5 more breaths, but just at 70% of that capacity. So whatever it just was, you're scaling it back to 70%. Couple more breaths at just 70% of your capacity. So do it a couple more times with me. And I want you to observe it. So this is really for you to have your own experience with what 70% means. So keep on breathing. And then just one more breath at 70% of your capacity. Okay, now I want you to return to 100% of your capacity. So you're going back to 100% of your capacity, and I want you to count how long that capacity is, what it is, how much it is. So another full inhale. And take one more, 70% capacity. Or I'm sorry, back to 100% capacity. Full exhale. Okay. And if you're with me live here, I would love to hear what your experience is. And if you're not live, observe it in your own breath and think about what you just experienced. So if you want to type anything into the chat, if you're watching live, go ahead. But what was your breath like with the first round of 100% capacity? What did that feel like for you? What were the qualities of your breath that you just experienced? What did you notice? How did you feel? So these are things to pay attention to. And I'll read any comments that pop up. But I'll tell you my own experience. Like, my breath feels strained. It feels, I feel a little bit lightheaded from it. And it feels like overall a kind of a poor quality of breath. Mostly kind of strained is how I think I can best describe it. My breath felt strained when I was pushing that 100% capacity. And then when I went to the 70%, and again, like, type it in the comments if you have anything to share from your own experience, because I'm really curious about what you felt. But if you're not with me live, just observe it, notice, and you can type it in the comments later. Now, if you went to the 70%, how did that feel for you? For me, it's more of the sukha. There's more ease in it. It certainly feels like I'm actually getting a better quality of air as I breathe to the 70%. But what I think is most interesting, when you return to 100% capacity, what was that count like for you? So I had you count it again, right? So you took the full inhales at 100% capacity with whatever number that was for you. You scaled that back to 70%, and then you return to the 100% again. And in my own experience, and in the past when I've done this exercise with students live, most people find that the 100% is now greater than it was before. So the first time I did it, my 100% was around a 15 count. The second time I did it, the 100% after, adapting and conditioning my lungs at 70%, my 100% had gone up to almost 20. So for me, that was a tremendous increase. But more so, I felt just like the quality of my breath had improved, and I felt like I was getting more oxygen. And so I think that okay, here, I have a comment here. The breath at 100% felt filling when I went, so the breath at 100% felt filling when I went to 70%. I felt like I needed to breathe. So it's the reverse. Okay, so that's super interesting. Try it again, Azalea, because we kind of did this, like, we're doing it at a little bit of an abbreviated tempo just for the sake of the live stream. But typically, like, you could kind of drag this out over several minutes. And so I would say try it again sometime. Find that 100%, take about 10 breaths at 100%, go down to 70%, take about 10 breaths at 70%, and then return to 100%. So try it a few times and experiment with it. But that's really interesting that is what your experience is. And it's worth noting. But as this relates to asana, so typically when I'm working with students, I suggest that they practice at about 70% of their capacity. And there's a few specific reasons that I suggest it. And my hope was that this breathing exercise could kind of illustrate it for you. But, as Azalea mentioned, that wasn't her experience just now. So when you're constantly practicing at 100%, more easily leads to burnout. But I think that it makes you more likely to get injured. It can kind of feel a little bit exhausting. Um, and maybe we lose some of the refinement that's available when you're practicing at a little bit less of your capacity. But basically, if you're constantly at 100%, my guess is that you're probably practicing a little bit too close to the edge, and that you might really easily tip over the edge. Um, and like I said, it just is less sustainable because either you're more prone to injury or you're just too damn tired from practicing at 100% many days in a row to make it to your mat for the prescribed 5 to 6 day a week that Ashtanga yoga is. When you scale back and you practice more at like 70, 75% of your capacity, then you are giving yourself room to grow. You give yourself room to improve. Whereas if you're at 100% and you're always at your max, like the tendency is for people to get burnt out rather than improve. If you're practicing at 75%, you still have more to give. And some days maybe you do give 100%. I'm not suggesting that you never give 100%. I think we've all done it when we're at workshops or when there's a lot of energy in the shala or when you're just feeling really good one day. Practicing 100% is okay, but it's not sustainable day in and day out. That does tend to happen. Like that does tend to be when burnout occurs, when injuries occur, when you just don't feel like getting onto the mat again, or when you're just too sore and you feel like you can't get on the mat again. When you're practicing at 70%, it actually leaves all this room to grow. And that's really when you start to see progress in your practice, because you're not getting injured, because you're practicing consistently. And you have to think of your practice in terms of the long haul. It's really after 10 years that you're not a beginner anymore. Those first 10 years, you're a beginner. And if you want to get to that second 10 years, it's really hard to do that if you're constantly at 100%. So I think when we're in terms of sustainability, you want to leave yourself room to grow. You want to leave yourself space to show up at your mat 6 days a week. And you want to avoid injury. You want to feel energized by your practice. You want your practice to give you energy, not wipe you out. And often my experiences working with students who practice at 100% of their capacity day in and day out is that that's what happens. They get too exhausted to keep it up. And sadly, they're often the ones that I just kind of lose. They're the ones that try it for a little while and drop out. So 70% is a really good way to think about it in terms of the long term. And at 70%, there's effort in that, right? Like I'm not saying to sloth your way through practice. Like you want to be putting effort into it. You want to feel something in your practice. Like you should be sweating a little bit. There's tapas burning. You should be finding resistance. You're putting effort into it. You're putting right effort into it. But you're just not putting so much effort into it that you're getting burnt out. You're putting enough effort into it so that you can change, so that you can really be in an asana and make a shape and feel the prana go through it and feel your breath move through it and feel your concentration take you inside. Because if you're not putting any effort into it, it's really easy to get distracted, right? And you're going to have an entirely different experience in practice when you're putting in 10% effort versus when you're putting in like 70, 75% effort, which is typically what my suggestion is. And even then you're going to have a different experience than when you're putting in 100% effort. And so these are all different things for you to play with. And maybe you want to play with that. Like take a practice, do the same practice 2 days in a row, do it one day at 0% effort, 10% effort. Basically you're just going through it and making the shapes, and then do it again a couple days later at 80, 75% effort. And feel the difference that you're going to have a different experience in your practice. And that's what this is about. It's like finding a amount of effort that you can exert again and again and again. Because if you only do Ashtanga once or twice a week, you're never really going to benefit from it. You're just going to have kind of like this abbreviated experience. So the idea is that you can do it every day for a super long time, and with devotion, with consistency. Like that's actually in the Yoga Sutras. That is kind of what we're striving for, as much as we're striving for any asana. So this was, I just kind of wanted to have this talk about sustainability because I know that it's super easy to get burned out. And like a lot of us have been practicing in a vacuum for a really long time now. Is this COVID ever going to end? And like you're looking for this like very kind of narrow margin between comfort and discomfort, and effort and right effort. And so you've got to kind of experience it in your own body. So get on your mat and keep doing it, and find something that works for you, where you can transform, where you can burn your tapas, where you can, put in some effort, but where you can do it again and again and again, and you're not getting hurt, and you're showing up every day, and you feel like your practice is giving you energy. So let me just read this comment. Okay. Is this, let's see. Okay, yeah, it's Azealia again. Okay, so now I feel what you said. I had longer breath counts before versus the faster breath count. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so thanks, Azealia. Thanks for writing that. And it's just something to experiment with. So I encourage you to do the breathing exercise to kind of illustrate how this might take place in your own body. And then, maybe do the same practice a couple of days in a row, but play with the amount of effort that you're putting into it. And like, these things are all a little mercurial, like they're very individualized. Everyone's going to have their own experience, and your experience is going to change over time. But one of my goals always for a student that I'm working with is to get them to that point where it is changing over the time, where you have that span of time so that you can really, have the experience. Like, yoga doesn't happen over a couple of practices. It happens over a couple of years, or maybe a couple of decades. So play with that. Play with it in your practice. If you got any questions, pop them in the comments. I'll check the thread later to see if I can help you in any way. And thank you so much for tuning in live. If you have not yet signed up for the How to Not Suck at Second Series Challenge, sign up. I think it's going to be fun. I put a lot of work into making the videos for you. And I actually based it a lot on, if you remember a while back, I asked what you were struggling with. So I tried to incorporate some of those things that were mentioned in the comments of what you were struggling with into these videos. So I hope that you will check them out. That starts on March 1st, which I can't believe it, but that is Monday. It's already almost March. So thank you so much for being here live. And if you have any questions, be sure to let me know. Bye.